up? What's up? It's Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies. I have a new guest today. What I'm going to do going forward is, and hopefully I can find enough people to agree to it, but I want to have different fans represent their team in a draft. And so if you've been paying attention, I've had it where subscribers can come in and talk about their big board and their mock drafts on the NBA Draft Junkies podcast. But now I want to do things that are a little bit more team specific. And the guest is, I just call him Thunder Dustin. We met on Twitter, NBA Draft Twitter, and he has some pretty good takes. And so I reached out to him and see if he wanted to be the first guest. And today he's somewhat on the hot seat because he is in charge of the Oklahoma City Thunder's draft class. So, Dustin, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. This is really fun. This is going to be my first podcast, so I'm excited.
Okay, well, I'm going to claim it first of many for you. All right,
Okay.
so let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. In my opinion, they were the biggest surprise of the 2019-20 season. I didn't have them as a playoff team. I thought that they were going to be, a lottery team. I didn't think Chris Paul was going to be there the entire season. And to my surprise, they were super competitive. I knew SGA was good, and I like Schroeder. I just didn't think that Chris Paul wanted to be there. And I just thought that he would move. Going from the Clippers to Houston to kind of just being pushed out of Houston, it motivated him more than made him sulk. And so he kind of put himself in position to where his value is high again. So I don't expect him to be there. So with all that being said, let's talk about Chris Paul possibly being traded first. Where would you like to see him go, and what type of assets would you like the Thunder to get in return?
Well, first and foremost, you can't talk about this without talking about Sam Presti, right?
Yep.
If you look at like the type of packages, he targets, when he moves players, especially when, you're planning on doing a rebuild, you're going to want like rookie contracts back. You're going to want, draft compensation, like good draft compensation. So with that being said, like, I think a lot of people tend to overrate Chris Paul's value. A lot of people forget that I think he's like 35 going into the season, or maybe close to 36.
Yep. Him and LeBron changed the rule so they can get paid a little bit more. I think it was the over 36 rule or over 37 rule. So, yeah.
Yeah. But he's owed over 86 million the next two seasons, or about 86 million over the next two seasons. It's a lot of money for a guy who, kind of has routinely gotten injured in the playoffs. So when you talk about the value he can return, contenders are asking themselves, is this a guy that I can count on in the playoffs? And, how many, GMs and owners are going to want to shell out that amount of money or, compensation for a guy that has gotten hurt? So there's a few teams that may be willing to do that. Milwaukee, right? That's one that we've heard a lot. They kind of have the impetus to trade for Chris Paul because, they really want to keep Giannis. And that's a big deal. So if we can get back, guys like Dante DiVincenzo, a guy who has kind of disappointed a little bit, but, came in with high expectations. Can you turn around his game? Can he shoot the three at a better percentage and defend at a high level? And maybe he just needs a change of scenery. He's a guy I'd definitely be interested in. If we can get adequate draft compensation back and also save some money, I think that Presti would have to take a hard look at that when evaluating a Chris Paul move. So, and there, of course, you can also bring back some veterans that are maybe on a 1 or 2-year deal. That's not going to eat up a ton of your, salary commitment. That you can trade down the line to contenders for future, you know, rookie contracts or, trade assets, things like, or draft assets. So that's Milwaukee. I mean, I think that, they do have the chips to pull off a trade if they want to, and if Presti is so inclined. The Knicks are another team. I mean, that's probably the most popular destination that's been, pushed around for Chris Paul. And I think it does make a lot of sense depending on the direction that, OKC wants to go in, because you can probably save the most amount of money from trading Chris Paul to the Knicks, because they have a ton of guys that are only guaranteed like $1 million that they can cut and let go and create a ton of cap space. And so they can absorb most of his contract into cap space. So, with that being said, I mean, there's some guys on there too that, I mean, Knox is a guy that I'm kind of iffy on. He has some talent. He's like had some big flashes that make you like him. But Kevin Knox is a guy that I think, could be intriguing for a guy like Presti who loves athletic wings, guys who can't shoot, right? But, Knox has flashed a little bit of shooting. But then also, can you get a guy like, Nicolina, really defensive-minded point guard who has like really great tools. He's locked down some, really good offensive players, in his young career. Presti loves those types of players.
Right.
So I would be looking to get back guys like that, guys who have like upside, who maybe just need a change of scenery. Plus, whatever draft compensation we can get. I know like the Knicks have a few picks in this year's draft. Maybe we can get some additional, compensation in this year's draft. But yeah, I mean, guys like that. Maybe we can get back a guy like Damian Dotson, who is a little bit underrated. I think he's a guy who really kind of showed some improvement this year in terms of shooting. He's probably more of like a depth wing more than a starting wing.
Mm-hmm.
But, for the Thunder, you look at who they have in their rotation as far as wings go. You got Lou Dort, defensive monster, right? But, maybe he doesn't make a shooting improvement. You got Hamidou Diallo, who struggles on defense and offense. He can't really shoot it. You've got guys like Terrence Ferguson, who's really underperformed. So OKC really needs to be looking for like wings and like, guards long term, because, Schroeder only has 1 year left on his deal. I know we're probably looking to move Chris Paul. So really the only like stable guys we have right now are Dort and SGA. That's it.
Would you
So
would you be interested in a deal where it's like Kevin Knox and Dennis Smith?
I really like I hope Dennis Smith doesn't watch this, or if he does, I hope this motivates him. I think the guy's like super athletic and he was a really good prospect coming out, but I just really don't like his game. I think, he's a bit selfish with the ball. And I think, honestly, like I know I've had enough of that with Westbrook. I know Westbrook, I know his numbers. I know he's passed the ball a lot, but he's I'm over like that kind of guy, right? Who just, uses up a lot of possessions. But there is some upside to him. I mean, I think you would have to take a hard look at that. I know that there has been some talk about how he's kind of been making a lot of progress, recently.
Everybody is in the off season.
Right, exactly.
Everybody's in the best shape of their lives. Everybody is,
I mean, right, but
only time will
Presti
tell.
right. But Presti has had success with like really athletic guards before, right? A lot of people didn't see Westbrook coming into the league as a point guard, but
Right.
OKC turned him into one and made him, a really really good point guard for a long time. But if I'm getting Knox and Dennis Smith Jr. back, I'd probably would look to get draft compensation as well,
Like
as well as
28th. I
What's
know they
that?
have the 28th pick. I mean, I don't know if they'd be desperate enough to give up the 8th pick for
Nah,
Chris Paul, but they have the 28th pick and 27. The Lakers have the 28th and 38. So 27 and 38.
yeah, if we could get like 27 and 38, that'd be awesome. If we could just get 27, I think that you would have to take a hard look at that. Plus financial relief, right?
Right.
Um, if we can get a Randall as well, like a Julius Randle, that's a guy who, he exploded really when he got to New Orleans, and he looked
Mm-hmm.
really, really good. And he hasn't looked as great on a pretty bad New York team, right? But can he come to OKC and come off the bench as a six-man type and kind of revitalize his career a little bit and show that what he did in New Orleans wasn't a fluke, right? That's a guy that if we make him look good and we increase his like stock, that's a guy that we can turn around and flip for additional value, or if we like him well enough, keep him for a few years as a part of the rotation, depending on how he plays. Um, but Knox and Smith definitely need draft compensation coming back. But Randall's usually been a huge part of the deals where Chris Paul's involved going to the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine just for the salary to make the deals work.
Right.
So let's talk about the Thunder, the current pick they have. I
Okay.
do believe that Chris Paul will be moved, and I do think that the Thunder will get an additional pick in this draft. I don't know when or where, but let's talk about pick number 25. Who are your targets, or who do you think the Thunder should target at that range? Now, I know this is kind of difficult because this is such an unpredictable class. I think
Right.
anywhere from like 14 through 25 or even 14 through 30, not much of a difference between those players. So, in a realistic range, who do you think the Thunder should target at that number?
When you say realistic range, I mean, everybody's draft boards are everywhere right now, right?
Yep.
I'm really hoping to kind of dwindle down on that, once the combine is over with and they release measurements. Uh, but anyways, there's some guys that I think, could potentially fall into that range, or, uh, you know, guys that we might want to trade up a few spots possibly somehow to get them. But one of the guys that I really like is Precious Achiuwa. I mean, I love Precious Achiuwa so much. I've watched a few games of his, and you know, um, he's still a bit raw on offense, but I really feel like he's starting to figure things out on defense towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you talk about a guy who has all the tools. I mean, he checks a lot of boxes from a guy you want, um, you know, starting as a defensive center or defensive four, however you want to use him, however he develops, right? Um, he showed a lot of improvement in terms of uh, defending the perimeter, making the correct reads, making good rotations. I mean, he's got the athleticism to really just dominate on that end, in my opinion. So I think guys like him, don't come around often. So uh, I would hope and pray that he falls to 25, because I really think he's a guy that's going to go top 10. But I know a lot of people don't think that.
I'm
Um,
high on him. I have him as a lottery pick. I've
yeah,
been sold on him for a while just because of the tools. I know he's raw, and I know there's a lot of areas that he needs to improve on. I think he does have high bust potential because if he doesn't if he doesn't find a niche, then I think he could have a hard time sticking. But if he just decides that I'm going to be a defender slash rebounder energy guy first, and then let his skills, just kind of develop over time, then I think that he will have a really good role. But if he wants to come out and try to be a wing and, handle the ball and try to run guys over on straight line drives and settle for
right.
pull-up jumpers, then I think you could be in trouble. So for me, it's just going to depend on his mentality and accepting the role and then just kind of building from there. The most interesting thing about him is he's working out with Mahmoud Abdul Rauf in New
Yeah,
York.
I saw that.
That is a very interesting combination. I heard about it before they posted pictures. I have a friend of mine that's that knows Abdul Rauf. I went to college in Mississippi, so I have a lot of friends that are connected to the basketball world in Mississippi. So I heard about it a few weeks ago, and then I guess they just posted a picture like last week or so. So I would love to like see what they're working on because it's such a mismatch couple in a sense. Like you have this
Mhm.
five with tools, that's an energy guy, and then his trainer or he's trusting his pre-draft development with Abdul Rauf, who doesn't really have a reputation as a trainer. Not saying that he's not qualified by any means, because I've done some pre-draft training and my resume is nowhere near as good as his. But yeah, I mean, you would think like he would work with a guard, you know? You would think that
Right.
um, it's easy to just put guys in the box as, he works with guards or he works with bigs, but just a mismatch couple because you have this guy that is, like I said, more so a five. I think he's a five now. Four tools, can't really shoot, lacks touch, and he's working with a point guard that has great touch and is a great shooter. So if Abdul Rauf has success with Precious, then his phone is going to be ringing off the hook next summer.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
then, but yeah, I like him a lot. Like I said, I don't think that he'll fall at that range, but he does seem like the type of guy that Sam Presti would love, or even
Mhm.
somebody that Presti would trade up for, and he fits the bill. But and I do think um, Presti is kind of outdated with the times in a sense because he seems to prefer length and defense over shooting. And I don't know if you can be really successful in today's NBA if you have a bunch of guys that just defend and don't really bring much on the offensive end of the floor.
Oh, I completely agree with you. That's one of my big concerns, that I've had, you know, for the past few months, because you see the guys that Presti's brought in, and a lot of them, they come in, they're very unrefined on offense, right?
Mhm.
But on the other hand, right, like just a few years ago, we put together like a really, really great defensive run. Like it was like, I think it was pretty close to historic, if not historic, in terms of how good OKC's defense was. So he's definitely very defensive minded. But with that being said, like, you know, we're so early on in the rebuild, right? Like we haven't even traded Chris Paul yet. Um, so I think the best, my philosophy, my draft philosophy, I think kind of mirrors a little bit of what, Presti is about is draft for upside. I don't think you're at the point where you need to draft for fit,
Right.
right? But I do think he needs to kind of have a plan. Like, okay, if you draft this guy, like you need to give him, X amount of reps or X amount of minutes so we can get him on the development track, right? If a guy doesn't get minutes, he really can't develop all that much. And I think Achiuwa can be that guy. Like, I mean, Adams has 1 year left on his contract at 25 million. If we want to park him at the five, and or just bring him off the bench this year and wait for Adams to expire, and then have him come on as the starter. I mean, we need to be bad over the next couple of years because we have a ton of good picks.
Yeah.
If we are bad, and next year's a really strong draft, so that's the route that I advocate for. But but yeah, I mean, back to him trading with what did you say his name was? Mahmoud Abdul Rauf.
Mahmoud Abdul
Probably said
Rauf.
that. Okay, so like, if the thing that I like about Ochoa is that he can really finish around the basket.
You think so?
Like, well, with his left hand, he can now, but
He
he's a
just
right-handed shooter.
he gets a lot
Like,
of his shots blocked. I feel like he should be a better finisher due to his athleticism, but for whatever reason, I can't figure out why he gets so many shots blocked around the rim. That's why his offensive rebounding numbers are pretty good because he will get his rebound once he gets his shot blocked. But yeah, he just seems like he struggles off finishing off 1 foot on his drives to the rim. He lacks the explosion. But I think that he should be, and he has the potential to end up being like a really, really good high level finisher. It's just a couple
yeah.
things that he needs to tweak.
Yeah, I guess I'm just projecting a bit, but
Mhm.
like I see these clips of like Ochoa just like he'll catch the ball off, as he's rolling to the rim, and he'll just like explode off of his feet like as he's catching the ball, like, outside of the restricted area, like well outside of the restricted area, and he'll just be able to like power it down.
Yeah.
And I think, part of it too might be that, I think he'll get better as he gets more reps, for sure. How much better he gets, that's up to him. But but his upside's through the roof there. I mean, I think a large part of it too, though, is he changed positions, right? Like Wiseman was going to be the center, he was going to be the forward, so he's going to probably be playing out on the perimeter a lot more, and now he's playing inside a lot more.
Well,
But
that's I think that was a good thing for him because like when I watched his high school film, he was dancing with the basketball. He was dribble between the legs, pull up jumper, and I
oh
felt
yeah,
like it was a negative and a positive. It was a positive in the sense because he has those baseline of skills. It was a negative in a sense because that's not going to be the role that he plays in the NBA. And so if he can turn into a five, but utilize those skills. Now, this is a bad comparison, but you look at like Anthony Davis, for example. They said he had guard skills. He played point guard. And then I didn't really see it at first early in his career because I just thought he's a energy guy. I knew he had some skills, but I didn't really see like guard skills until like recently. You see like the footwork of, coming off a pin down or just the way he moves, or if he gets the rebound, he can push the ball up court. And then you see the guard skills. So for Precious, if he can just have a little glimpse of that to where, he gets a rebound, he pushes the ball up court, he makes the right read, or he knows how to attack on straight line drives, then I think it's good. But if he starts falling in love with the pull up jumper, because the games I saw him play AAU, he shot a lot of pull up jumpers off the dribble,
yeah,
and you know I think like going to a team like the Thunder would be really good for him because they'll have structure there. Like I think if he goes to like a really bad team where there's not structure, then I think some of his bad habits that he displayed in high school could be enhanced.
yeah. I'll say this: if they can turn Jeremy Grant into like a solid role player, right? uh, because they
Mm-hmm.
traded for him from Philly, then I think they could probably do something with Achiuwa. But moving on, another guy that I really, really like for the Thunder is Jalen Smith. He's another guy I'm pretty high on. I know some people have him in that 20s range. Um, you know, he's 6'10", I think. I think he's got like a 7'1" wingspan, 7'2", something like that. But he's strong in his upper body. Needs to work on those legs a bit. But for him to come in and play that center position and defend as well as he did, like protect the rim. I mean, from what I've seen, he can make some really good defensive reads. Like in terms of like deciding when to help and when not to help.
Mm-hmm.
And while his footwork needs work on the perimeter, I think he can get there in time, with the right staff. And, OKC's built on defense. And so that's a guy I'd like to see us get to our organization and see what he can do. On the offensive side, I mean, he's a guy who's flashed being able to, put the ball on the floor once and just get to the hole, right? But also, play that pick and pop game. And I've even seen him shoot threes, coming off screens, which
Yeah,
is crazy for a 6'10" guy with
that's the
his kind of build.
yep.
I mean, that's another guy, you have to look at him and say, if he figures out the footwork and, his shooting is real, uh, his defensive intensity and his motor is like awesome. Like his upside is also through the roof. Um, so those kinds of guys, if they hit, like it's just they're really really hard to find. Uh, and they're guys who can like be a part of a rotation or even start for a very long time and have like really good NBA careers.
Yeah, I think the part that intrigues me the most about him is one, his size, his shooting, but how he can shoot off the move. But
Hmm.
also he rebounds and he can protect the rim as a shot blocker. Not a skill set that you usually see combined in one person. And I think he becomes a real threat if you have him at the five, but you're running like action plays for him. I mean, no other five wants to chase anyone around screens or on the perimeter. And so he would make it really tough for another five if you play him at the five to, not only guard him on like pick and pops, but if he starts off under the basket and he pops out to the 3-point line, nobody wants to guard him. So I think he could be a matchup nightmare in the right situation. Now, who is another prospect that you think the Thunder should target?
Another guy I've kind of got in that range is like Jahmi'Us Ramsey,
Mm-hmm.
or Jahmi'Us Ramsey. I don't know why I said that wrong, but yeah, I think that draft Twitter has kind of like killed him on defense a little bit, but from what I've seen, he's not that bad. Like he's a little bit, those concerns are a little bit overstated. I mean, I was just talking about this last night with some guys, you know, and I've seen stretches where like I seen a whole game where like Ramsey did not get scored on a single time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his defense may not be sexy. He may not get a ton of steals and a ton of blocks, but there's a lot of times where he's in the right position and he's just there to discourage the drive, and so the offense has to figure something else out, right? Um, he's strong, he's long. I think he's got like a 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. He's 6'4". He's like built really, really well. I mean, if you've seen him shirtless, like he's got an amazing NBA body. He's ready.
Yeah, he lives in Dallas. I live in Dallas, and I've seen him. I've seen him at the gym multiple times. So he never has a shirt on. So
Yeah, yeah,
even if you like go on his IG or go on like the guys that train him, their IG, he's working out. He never has a shirt on. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true. I don't think of it. I mean, the only time I've seen him with a shirt on is when he's playing for Texas Tech.
yeah,
But no, I mean, so let's, I think, there's some times where I've watched him and he reminds me a bit of Marcus Smart, and not saying that's the best comparison, but I have seen him make some like, really good hustle plays, some really good reads. But, also at the same time, I think, I've seen him, close out a little too hard. I've seen him, get caught ball watching. But, that's not super concerning to me in the way it is for other people because he's so young. I think he just turned 19. He's
and
one
he
of the young
plays with
guys.
energy.
Yeah, he plays with a lot of
Yeah,
energy. I think this is something that goes underrated. Certain guys in college play for long stretches of time without sitting down, and he was one of those guys who he just plays for a long time. I forget the name of his coach, like Chris Beard, I think.
yep,
Uh, I mean, he'll just keep Ramsey out there for what seems like forever.
yeah.
Like I think I've seen him play a whole half before. Um, but anyways, he just turned 19, and I think that you know he can figure that stuff out. He's got time. He's got plenty
Mm-hmm.
of time. Now on the offensive side, I get why people are concerned about his shooting because his free throw percentage isn't that great, but it's on a limited sample size. He didn't shoot that well in high school or AAU
Which
either.
is why his 3-point shooting to me was shocking. And I was talking to a friend, and he was like, which do you believe in? Do you believe in the consistency as the numbers show, or do you believe in, what we saw like in high school and his free throw percentage and his jumper inside the 3-point line? And it goes back to like the Marcus Smart comparison. I don't know if that started in high school because, like they are similar in size. I mean, I think Smart's a little thicker, but I mean, they're similar in size. They're both from the same Dallas area. I thought like coming into Ramsey's freshman year, he was going to be an NBA prospect based off of him being a high level energy defender that plays scrappy.
Mm.
Did not know that he was going to be a volume efficient 3-point shooter. And so, and it's hard, like when I had the debate with my friend, it was hard to say like I don't believe in his shooting because he put up quite a few attempts per game and the numbers were there. It wasn't like he was, shooting 40% on 2 attempts a game, or even 3. It was 5, I believe. And then I had the luxury of watching him work out this summer, and it was in a workout with some NBA players there and some other guys that are doing some pre-draft stuff. And I watched him as far as like in shooting drills, and watched him play competitive. And he has an effortless release on his shot when it's a 3-pointer. But it seems like his mechanics, and maybe he's worked on it since then. It was probably earlier in the summer, but it seems like his mechanics are a little bit different when he's inside the 3-point line and he's shooting his free throw. And I think that is the main reason why there's a difference in his percentages from threes to free throws or whatever. But I think overall, he plays hard. I think he has good positional size. I think that you can teach him how to be a good defender, because to me, like the main thing is the motor. He's got that part down. Now it's just teaching him just, just improving on like reading defenses and just kind of knowing where to be at the right time. Because like I said, the motor and the energy is there. But I think that would be a good pick for Oklahoma City also.
Okay, I want to talk about something else with Ramsey real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I love his shooting form outside 3, like you said. I read somewhere that they say the best shooters dip the ball below the hip when they're, like, I guess, prepping their shot, right? So like when they catch, they dip the ball below the hip and then bring it up. They say the best shooters do that.
Except Klay Thompson.
Yeah, Ramsey does that. Ramsey dips the ball below his hip before he, gets it above his head to shoot it. I trust what I see. I mean, I think his form is great. Now, I think the other stuff, he can work on in time, and but this is a 3-point heavy league. I think that if you can ask him to come in, hey, we want you to shoot open threes, or if you want to give him a little bit more of a leash and say, hey, like, go see what you can do, right? Like, try to create for yourself. I think that there is some upside there to that part of his game.
Mm-hmm.
But the real value lies in his 3-point shooting. Now, another thing people don't talk about him, his passing is actually like not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a point guard or anything like that, or he's going to be, just whipping crazy passes around the court. But like, I like his inclination to get into the paint and like, do these little like drop off passes to the big. Not all guards do that, and he just turned 19. He's already showing that, and he's strong going to the hole too. Even though I know his finishing wasn't great, but I think he had a hamstring issue or something like that.
Right.
And he played with a mask for a long time. So I think those are things you have to consider. But like, I've seen him finish strong. But anyways, that's all I got on Ramsey. I really like the kid. I think he looks like a hard worker to me.
Yeah. Yep. So here's a player that I have the Thunder taking at 25 on my last mock that I need to update. But
Okay.
I have them taking Jaden McDaniels. That is one situation I would love to see him go to, because I'm big on the Thunder's developmental program. I saw it firsthand. I worked in the G League. It was the D League at the time. And I live in the Dallas area. And so at the time, they were the Tulsa 66ers. And since they were close in proximity, we played them like once a week, it seemed like it. And so I've seen like a lot of the guys that they've developed, and not all of them have developed into NBA players, but a lot of the guys end up developing into no-name guys that didn't go to like these really big colleges, guys that went to like small schools, and they ended up developing them into high-level players overseas. And one of the things that the Thunder did that was different than other D-League teams was they really were big on like development, as far as
Mm-hmm.
not just their own guys, but just everybody. And I just remember like, even like before game, because I was working with the Texas Legends, and before game, the coaches were out there working the players out. It was just like a full on development. So ever since then, I've just kind of believed in everything they've done. So I think like for a guy like McDaniels, he has all the tools. He has all the talent. I mean, you can even say skill for skill. talent-wise, he's a top 5 to 10 player because he's 6'9", 6'10". He floats around the perimeter. He can handle the ball. He has upside as a shooter. There's just so many things that he can do, but for whatever reasons, the numbers just didn't reflect his talent, and so his stock has dropped. I mean, I think at one point he was a projected top 10 pick, but now I think that he's in the range to where he can end up with the Thunder. And I feel like the Thunder and the Raptors are the two teams that I would love to see him go and really develop, because I think they can maximize his skill set. So I wanted to ask you, what did you think about that?
So, again, I'm all about upside, especially at 25, right? So like I'm okay with taking a swing there. Especially if, guys like, Smith and Achiuwa aren't there, and I don't think they will be. We'd probably have to move up to get them. I'm okay with taking a swing on a guy like McDaniels, because, like you said, he has all the tools. He has like shown that he has, he kind of has it in his bag to shoot those 3-pointers, right? Um, and create off the dribble a little. And his defense was actually pretty good at times. I just
Yeah.
think he's going to get stronger, and I think the guy that comes to mind, like as far as like a physical comparison, is like one, his brother, and like two, Brandon Ingram. Like Brandon Ingram, like for the first 2 years, people were like, is he gonna add weight? you know
Mm-hmm.
and he ended up adding some weight, and same thing with Durant. So I think he's a guy, like, if you look at what he is 3 years down the road, can he be better than a guy like Darius Baisley, who like looked awesome,
Yeah.
in the playoffs.
Another
Uh,
testament to their development, Baisley
right,
and Dort.
exactly. But he certainly, and again, we need a wing. Can McDaniels be a wing? Or is he a forward? Can we play Baisley and McDaniels together? At the 3 and 4 spot, maybe.
Yep.
Uh, but from all accounts, I hear that McDaniels is a lot better defender than he showed at Washington, because I know they played that zone defense.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see what he does and how he looks. And I don't know if he's participating in the combine or not.
I'm not
Uh,
sure.
I have some character concerns, though. I have some character concerns.
Oh, there's a
Now
guy
I've heard.
when I post this video. There's a guy, I don't know if he knows him, but every time I post, he's always talking about his GPA, how he's a high character guy. And so one of the comments was, "Yeah, I mean, you could have a high GPA. That doesn't mean that you're a bad character guy." And then the guy goes into his major. He's talking about how University of Washington is a tough school to get into. But one of the things about McDaniels that concerns me in a sense is that he reminds me of another guy that I felt like he's the one player that I felt like the Thunder couldn't get the most out of him. And he had tremendous talent, and it was Perry Jones.
Uh,
And I think that like I think Perry Jones is one of the most talented players in the world, just with his size and athleticism. I just To me, he struggled with finding a role. Like, he wasn't a good enough shooter to be like a floor spacer, but he wasn't a good enough post player to be a post player. Like, he had like a, what's the saying, a jack of all trades, master of none.
yeah,
And I wonder if McDaniels falls into that same category.
it's possible. Perry Jones is the biggest tease for me in probably OKC history. I don't know if you remember, but he went on this like amazing run. He had like it was quite a few games. I don't remember how many exactly, but I
I was at
remember
the
like
Clippers game, the one in LA, first the
uh,
Clippers. It was like
maybe.
opening night. It was like very early in the season. Durant was out with the broken foot, and I think Russ hurt his hand.
Yeah, that
At
sounds
like
about right.
30. I was at that game. And
Yeah,
I talked to
wow.
him after the game, yeah, because like I said, he lives in Dallas, and I met Perry. A friend of mine has a company called Power Hands. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but there's these gloves that help with ball handling. And so Perry was one of the
Oh,
first guys that they signed. And then I remember, because I do some video work, so I remember going up to Oklahoma City and filming him do a workout with the gloves. It was years ago. So I stayed in contact with him a little bit, and then because I wanted to do like a web series, and so he's one of the guys that I reached out to. And so I had a friend that played for the Clippers, and it was like I don't know if it was opening night or second night of the year, but Durant was hurt and Westbrook was hurt, and they literally like ran the offense through him, and he put up like 32 points. I thought it was his coming out party.
Me too.
And then the next game, it wasn't, it just wasn't the same. And so I felt like that was a really big missed opportunity for him to capitalize. Because I think if he would have been able, not necessarily maintain that 32 points per game, but just kind of maintain that type of play, I think it would have put him in position to have a long NBA career, because he definitely would have got a pretty long contract extension. And then he's just had like some bad luck over the years. I know he's had like a hip injury, and he's playing in Turkey now. But yeah, I think that he's a guy that he didn't have the success story with the Thunder development plan that I thought he would. But like I said, I could see Jaden McDaniels possibly falling into that same category, because he doesn't have like that one skill that he can hang his hat on, even though he's really, really skilled. So it's just going to be up to him and whatever team he goes to find a role for him, and for him to accept the role.
Yeah, completely agreed.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for him is the turnovers and his decision making. So I feel like he's not necessarily a good enough shooter where he's a pick and pop guy. So I think he needs the ball in his hands to be able to showcase, the skill set that he has. But he's just not a good decision maker. Like, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 30 more turnovers than assists. And so it's going to be hard for you to give a person that has that turnover to assist ratio freedom with the ball. And then if he can't play off the ball, then now you got to figure out how to, where to play him at.
I'm probably going to get murdered for saying this. But like, I would feel a whole lot better about drafting a guy like McDaniels if like Billy Donovan was still going to be our head coach. I know a lot of Thunder guys don't like Billy Donovan. I'm a fan of him. I think he's a really good coach.
He finally got a chance to show that he can coach.
Yeah, and I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong in Chicago, because now he's going to have shooters, and he's also got another great GM he's working with in AK. But but yeah, like Donovan is a guy who, like, he brought waiters on board. Or Presti brought waiters on board, and he was able to get the most out of waiters. Like, I think you want a guy like that as your coach, or a guy who can get the most out of guys. So I think that may play a part in the decision making there at 25, though I don't think it should play a huge part. But anyways, what do you think about RJ Hampton if he falls to 25?
I don't think he does. I've seen RJ. He works out down the street from me, and so I've been to a couple of his workouts. I'm starting to see these Westbrook comparisons, especially since Troy Weaver is now in charge of Detroit, and I guess it's kind of been put out there that he liked RJ. Yeah, I mean, I like RJ. I just don't think he falls that far, simply because I still think he ends up going late lottery, but he would be a really good fit there. Well, we don't know who the coach is, so I guess that kind of makes it somewhat difficult. So we're kind of judging the Thunder based off of Presti and in the past. But yeah, I mean, I think that he would fit into the Presti mode as long, athletic, high defensive upside. There are questions about his shooting right now, but I've been to his workout, and he's working crazy hard on his jump shot. Like, he's working with Mike Miller. He shoots hundreds on top of hundreds of threes every day. He's really been putting in the work. And so I can say this because I've seen it with my own eyes. But yeah, if he can develop into a consistent shooter, then he kind of fits, the Thunder mode. Like I said, long, athletic, high upside as a defender, and then but if he can shoot, then he ends up being a difference maker there. Because I've had a chance, like, I watched Terrence Ferguson a lot in high school. I was actually like the video guy for his AU team in his senior year. And then I've
Oh,
watched RJ in high school also. Um, Ferg had a reputation as a great shooter in high school, but I never thought that he was a great shooter. I thought that he was mostly hyped off of his upside because, I mean, he is a freak athlete.
oh
He
yeah.
doesn't necessarily showcase his athleticism in games, but he's a freak athlete. But he struggles like putting the ball on the floor or doing anything outside of knocking down open shots and running in transition. And RJ is, I think RJ's not, well, obviously Ferg was a better shooter at the same stage, but I think RJ has a lot more to his game as far as, being able to put the ball on the floor, offensive creativity, getting to the basket, and more so of a mentality. Like he's always in attack mode. And so, but yeah, it'd be interesting just if RJ fell to the Thunder to see those two Dallas guys on the same team. Um, but yeah, I think that RJ could probably come in there and take some of Ferg's minutes because it just seems like Terrence has lost his confidence in his shot. And if
Yeah,
he's not shooting the ball well, then he's not really bringing you much to the table on the offensive end of the floor.
right. Yeah, agreed with that 100%. I'm ready for some new guards and new wings. I wanna talk to you about a few players. This is a little bit of a departure from what Presti is used to doing. He's always drafting mostly guards and wings. Doesn't draft a whole lot of bigs or anything like that. What do you think about Presti taking like an Xavier Tillman if he's there at 25?
He doesn't seem like, well, he doesn't seem to me like an OKC guy. But when I used to work in the G League, they always had a guy built like him, an undersized, high IQ guy that could do a little bit of everything as far as like decent passer. Um, and then some of those guys they would bring up for 10 days, but I haven't really seen them have those type of guys on their roster on the parent club. But yeah, Tillman could be an interesting pick. But I think he would really benefit if he had like a really good point guard, like a pick and roll point guard. I don't know if I'm saying this because we're just so used to seeing him with Cassius Winston that he seemed to be able to get spoon fed some easy baskets because Winston was such a good pick and roll playmaker. But yeah, I'll be interested to see him with the Thunder, even though, like you said, it just doesn't seem like a traditional Thunder draft pick.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I know Danny Ainge like has picks, and if he feels like taking another guy, I think Boston is picking 17, right? Or where is it?
14, 26, and 30.
Okay, okay. So 14, 26. So I know he has some picks. So I wonder, if we can snag him out from under Danny Ainge's fingers and trade him back to Ainge for more than he's worth. So
Maybe,
that sounds like a Presti type of move. But no, I mean I
but
think
Ainge usually wins trades.
yeah, so does Presti.
Yeah, so
So does,
that's why it'd be interesting to see those two over the phone fighting it out.
right,
But
right.
I did think of a package, and I don't know if it can work. But it was like the 3 picks that the Celtics have, and one of their players, maybe like Romeo Langford, and I don't know whatever salary they can make to make it work, and then for Steven Adams, because I think Boston could really use someone like Adams.
Man, that would be a dream for me. I love Steven Adams. I love everything he has done for the OKC organization. He's a high character guy. He plays his heart out. Um, you know, I mean, I love Adams. You know, just a phenomenal center for us over the past few years. With that being said, he has kind of started to slow down a bit. I feel like I'm not
But
sure
he's
if there's
so
something
young.
wrong.
He's
I
like
know,
the oldest, youngest guy in the NBA.
I know, but he's also got a ton of minutes on him as well.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of the way he's kind of built though. He's built. He looks sturdy and everything. But he also takes a lot of hits, like sets hard screens, plays his heart out, gets on the floor, and you know, you combine that with, you know, playing as many minutes as he. I mean, I think he started playing in the playoffs in his, like, I think it was his rookie year, I believe, and then, you know, I think he's the next. I think it was his second year in the league. Like, they went like deep into the playoffs and played against the 73-win Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
So, but over the past couple of years, I mean, some OKC fans will tell you that he looks like he started to slow down, and you know, we probably didn't properly manage his minutes and stuff like that. But
He's
no, I
only
mean, if we can get,
he's
if we
only
can,
27.
I know, he's so young, it's crazy, but you know, you know, 25 million for a guy who is basically a complimentary center, you know, I mean, that's a pretty hefty price to pay. But you know, if we can get a guy like Romeo Langford and a pick or something back, I would be ecstatic. Like, I really like Romeo Langford. I like what I've seen from him, and I think
And
we're probably just gonna let Adams walk anyway. So that's not a deal I see that's probably practical. But if it does happen, you'll hear it from me first on Twitter about how excited I am, man. I love
yeah,
Adams though. Love Adams though.
yeah. I mean, I figure if you're Boston, you have to feel like you're one piece away, and you know they have a bunch of picks, so you can't hold on to them. I would take a flyer on it because that series with Miami could have went in either way. So, um, yeah, I don't know if they would have struggled with the Lakers playing a 6'8" Daniel Tice at the 5. So I think they have to really upgrade. And you got a team like the Thunder that's probably going to let Adams walk. And then you have Boston has 3 first-round picks. So to me, it just makes perfect sense. You just have to make the salaries match up.
Yeah, you know, that may be, you know, worth the flyer, like you said. And I think I've heard recently Vincent Poirier, I think he's wanting to go back overseas. There's been some talk about that, and then I don't know, has Boston like soured on Robert Williams a little bit? I didn't get a chance to watch a ton of them this year in the regular season.
I mean, if Williams would have came out after his freshman year, he would have been a lottery pick. I just don't know how much he likes basketball, to be honest with you. He has all the tools to like be really, really good. And I think there were some intel issues why he fell so far in the draft. Because talent's not the issue. And
Oh,
I think Boston must have known, but they felt like he was a project that they could turn around. And yeah, I mean, I think they would want him to be their guy and they would hope he would, but he just hasn't taken the position. And so he's still pretty young. He's still maybe too early to give up on. But yeah, I think if he just came out and played hard or just like had this extra competitive fire in him or something like that, he would be their starting center, no doubt. But it just seems like he hasn't been able to put it together consistently, and he's allowed guys that are less talented beat him out for minutes because he could really be like a devastating rim protector. I remember when I was watching him at A&M, he was blocking threes. Like the motor that he showed his freshman year at A&M, I haven't seen that same player since.
wow, wow, that's crazy.
Yep.
I want to get your take on this. You know, you say you're from the Dallas area, right?
Yeah, I live in Dallas.
Okay. I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know Richard Stayman, then, right?
Yeah, Mavs
Yeah,
draft guy.
yeah. He's awesome. Love that guy. I can't remember if I talked about this with him or not, but I want to know what your take is on like trading Chris Paul to the Mavericks for like a package around like Hardaway Jr. and like Dylan Wright.
I don't think the Mavs would do it, especially considering they want that 2020, or I guess there's no 2021 season. It's just going to be 21.
Right.
I think they would want that cap space because you're hearing the rumors about Giannis. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it would make sense for them. Yeah, I don't think it would make sense. I think they would go after Dragic because he has ties to BDA and Slovenia national team, and he'll be a lot cheaper. So I
Mm.
could see them doing that, but I don't see Chris Paul.
Yeah, I was just curious. That's something I've seen. On Real GM, I've seen a few guys talk about that and about how they like it. Like there was some type of deal. I can't remember what it was centered around those guys, and I was like, hey, if the Mavericks want Paul, we'll be happy to give him up. I mean, we're trying to tank, man. We've got the potential to get like 2 really high picks next year, especially if Houston blows up, right?
Yeah.
And their pick lands outside the top 4. I mean, like we could trade up for a Cade Cunningham or something like that. So that's why I'm trying to be
Yeah.
bad, right?
Yeah,
But
that would make a lot of sense to keep him in that area because the Thunder are, I mean, their fans are great, but if you somehow are able to keep Cade in the area, then I think it's a win-win for everybody involved, especially the Thunder owners and then the fans involved because you have a new face of the franchise, especially losing like in a matter of it seems like 5 years, Durant, Westbrook, Chris Paul, and so on. So, but
right,
man, we're it's been like an hour. Then it's one of those things where I
yeah,
can sit here and talk basketball all day.
right.
So I appreciate you coming on. And can you let everyone know where they can reach you at if people want to see some of your NBA draft or Thunder tweets?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter. My handle is at Thunder Dustin. So yeah, man. I mean, I'm always posting videos on there about different prospects. Just it's kind of it's kind of just where I dump all my thoughts about basketball. So if you're interested in some draft analysis and just some like videos on prospects that I've cut up, you can go there. I've also posted like a lot of like stuff in Excel sheets where I organize like a ton of defensive and offensive stats as it relates to prospects in the draft. So if you're a stat head, I've got a ton of stuff for you as well. So come check me out at Thunder Dustin.
All right, cool. Like I said, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it. All right, thanks again. It's Raphael with my guy Thunder Dustin with the NBA Draft Junkies podcast. We talked about the Oklahoma City Thunder today, and we are out.